Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Here's the 2009 Kawasaki Bruteforce 750. And we got a little problem. I was trail riding and I had a stick poke my front CV axle boot here on the bottom and I got a hole. So what I'm going to be doing is replacing it. I got the CV axle boot kit and it comes with the inner and outer boots as well as some grease, a castle nut cotter pin, and some clamps. So, I have to figure out a way to lift the four-wheeler up in the air. And I noticed that Dad has this trolley mechanism on the I-beam in the garage here. So, I'm going to attempt to lift it up using the winch onto the trolley, and I'll have to readjust here, but we'll get the front end up in the air so we can work on it easier. Here's the rolling trolley. It works pretty good. And I got the four-wheeler readjusted. And what I'm going to do is use the winch and attach it here and just use the winch to lift it up. Protect your plastic. I'm just going to use a foam. Let's see how this works. Just get it off the ground so we can work on it. Having one of them in your garage is quite handy. We don't have a super tall ceiling, so we don't have one of the big car lifts to get it off the ground. We do have this low-rise lift that we use for other automotive projects, but that trolley sure works good. So we'll take the tire off and inspect it and see what we have to do. Okay, I'm going to take the lug nuts off. They're 14 millimeter. Okay, so first I'm going to take the center hubcap off. I got the biggest screwdriver in the world. And then we'll get down to our castle nut, and it has a cotter pin in it. So you're going to take your cotter pin out. So we're going to bend this around. Alright, we'll get this flat. And get our cotter pin out. Then we're going to take this castle nut off, and this is a 27 millimeter socket. And now we can take this assembly apart. Okay, so what I think I'm going to do is, because I need to get the hub off first, I have to take the caliper off, and that has two bolts top and bottom, and I have my 12 mil, and I'm going to take them off. They're located, one is right here, and then the other one is down in there. So let's take this caliper off. So I took the caliper off. It was two 12 millimeter bolts, and I'm going to wire it up here, and then we're going to take the upper control arm off. Alright, now we can take this off. Alright, so I'm going to use the pry bar to pry the upper control arm off, like so. Then I can slide this off without taking the tie rod off, so I can get to this boot and unclip it and see what we got going on. See the shaft out. Like so. That way we don't have to take the bottom control arm and the tie rod off. Saves us a lot of time. Alright, I'm going to take these clips off the CV boot now. Alright, you can see why we're replacing this here. Look at that. Big hole. Alright, we're going to try to take the CV shaft out. Like that. Just pull it, and it came right out. And it's dripping oil, but I didn't want to mess around and stand there anymore, so now I got it out where I can see it, and put the pan under it to collect the oil. but I took the boot off, and I'm trying to figure out how I can get it off, because as you can see on one end it's super small, one end it's large, how I can get the new one over it. So I'll figure that out. So I'm just gonna get this boot out of the way by cutting it so I can see how to take this off. So I got this off. Just using the hammer you can hit it right off. This is the whole CV shaft and the vise here. That's probably the best bet for you guys. Now I'm able to put my CV boot on. It's got this clip ring down here, as you can see, and I'm going to slide my CV boot on new that way. So now I've resolved that issue. All these parts are really greasy, so make sure to wipe them all off. So here it is inside the CV boot here. This is where you got a bunch of ball bearings, so you have power wire steering, and the CV boot just protects it, keeps the grease in, and protects it from dirt and water from getting in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this new one on. I just cut off the old one, as you saw, and then we'll put this back together. And we'll get this on. Get it into the grooves. Okay, so you guys got to make sure that it's even inner and outer here. So when you're hitting it on, it goes in without going on an angle. And I didn't forget about the grease. So this kit came with the grease, which is pretty cool. And I'm going to pack it down in. Squeeze it all in there. Poop it right up. And then I'll slide it back on and put them clips on it. This is a pretty cool kit. I'll link that down in the description. Okay, so I wasn't using my systematic thinking skills, guys. We have a little problem. You see this clip for the CB boot. How am I going to get it on? Well, I'm glad the kit came with this sort of clip. You can just take it right apart, wind it around, and I can set it right over it and readjust as needed. So we got to push this up on into place here. Keep our grease in. Messy, messy, messy. Ought to have some gloves on, but get it up on like so. Okay, so I'm gonna pull this out. I'm gonna bend it over, and you see these clips? They're gonna fold over the top of it to hold it. Okay, because it's bent over 90, it can't move. It got it down nice and tight. It looks good. I'm going to do the same to the other one here. Get this one nice and tight. Bend it over. And then I'll definitely have to cut the length. But I'm going to get my hammer here, bend these little clips over. And then I'll have to probably get my little screwdriver and flip that one over. But that's how you do it. I gotta strengthen my wrist, guys. I had a recent bowling injury. My wrist problem, so gotta get back in the swing of things here with my CV shaft, my homemade dumbbell. Anyways, I got the CV boot all on and repaired. Now we're gonna put it back in there and get this all put back together and test it out, guys. Stay tuned. Well, how complicated is it? That's all the different gears you have to line up to get this back into place. We're gonna try popping it back in here. Okay, so this was a real struggle. Got it in. A hack to get a better angle is to raise your control arm by ratchet strap. I'm going to release that soon. But I got it in there. That internal clip, it had a little movement, and I don't think it was up in the air quite enough to where it would just slide in. So we had to play around, jiggle it, and got it in finally. So that might take a little bit, but now that this is in place, we're going to reassemble. I got the hoist way up in the air now, so it should be easier. So let's get this back in here. So after you get it in your hub, you're gonna put your control arm back on with your tassel nut. And I don't think there was a cotter pin in this, but there should have been. I know there's a cotter pin down here. Okay, we might have to shim it using a pickle fork or something if it spins, but we'll see. Yeah, like that. So I'm gonna have to use something to shim it to be able to tighten this down. Yeah. Now that we got the upper control arm on, that was a little bit of a pain, but we got that on. We're gonna put the rotor and hub on. Gotta line up the grooves. Get this in, and then we can put the caliper back on. Alright, time to put the castle nut back on. The kit came with a new one, 27mm. Then we'll put our cotter pin in afterwards. Then you got to make sure that your cotter pin hole line up with one of these grooves here. So either I loosen it a little or tighten a little more here. Close. Perfect. Now we'll get our cotter pin and slide it in. Now I'll put the caliper on. Alright, pop your cap back on. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to put our caliper on, get our brake pads stretched away so we can fit it over to the rotor. Now we're going to get our two 12mm bolts into the caliper here. Get them nice and snug, like so. And now we can put our wheel on. Alright, well I couldn't find a cotter key right at the moment, but there wasn't one in this, so I'm going to use a rivet, just, you know, put one in there as the cotter pin, bend it around. Time to put the lug nuts on, tie it around, line her up. Maybe. Alright, get your lug nuts started by hand so that way you don't strip them. Put these on, and we'll come back with our 14mm and tighten them up with the impact gun. There we go. Let's go test it out. Now we're just going to clean up and I'm going to go for a ride and test it out. There it was, CV boot replacement on a Bruteforce 750 Kawasaki. You know, I went the cheaper route. I got just the CV boot, but normally people replace the whole CV shaft. There's also another design boot where it's a split boot, so you didn't have to deal with what I did and having to take that whole assembly off the end to slide your new boot on and then put it back on. But I took a few extra steps. Probably didn't have all the correct tools. But you know, we're DIYing it, saving some money and doing it ourselves. It's a cheap fix. Now I gotta be more cautious when I'm trail riding and stuff, that I'm driving over clean terrain. Don't want this problem to happen again, but you liked what you saw and it helped you out, please leave a like, subscribe, stay tuned for more. Drop a comment in the comment box if you have any questions about this, or if you guys need any help with anything. I'll try my best to respond and help. Other than that, thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.